from the sales perspective, they have to deliver this deal page quickly, but video production takes time. So you kind of end up in this scenario where it's like, okay, what do we have available that I can just plug in right now? And oftentimes it's a highly polished branding awareness video, and it has nothing to do with the deal. It's a tremendous opportunity.
Hey, I'm Corrina.
And I'm Taylor.
And this is Direct, a podcast we created to showcase the creativity and hard work of go-to-market teams everywhere.
We're here to share the stories and experiences of the hardworking, passionate individuals who make up go-to-market teams, the ones who truly make the magic happen.
Taylor and I have been fortunate enough to work side by side on some incredible projects together, and now we want to put a spotlight on the unsung heroes behind some of the best go-to-market campaigns out there.
In each episode, you'll hear from individual contributors who have gone above and beyond to make a difference. They'll share their challenges, victories, and the lessons they've learned along the way, all to help you unlock the next step in your career. Get ready to be inspired, learn something new, maybe even share a laugh or two.
Welcome to Direct.
Welcome back to Direct. I am Taylor Young with my fabulous co-host, Corrina Owens.
Hi, everyone. Thrilled to be here with you.
And we are thrilled to be here today with Joe Hader, the founder of Preframe. It's a video production service helping enterprise sales teams deliver account-customized videos to their target accounts. Also, a hobby farmer like myself and multi-talented musician. Hi, Joe. How are you today?
Hey, doing awesome.
So, Joe, we always start with the same question. If you had a magic wand, how would you change maybe a part of your role, a part of how you do business, or even something in your life?
Yeah. So if I had a magic wand, I would like to solve my initial go-to-market phase for my business.
Tell us more.
Yeah. So starting a business, and I'm totally bootstrapped. There's no VC funding. It's just Joe. That's it. So it's such an iterative process of trying to understand what's the problem that I'm solving, who exactly it is that I'm actually helping at the end of the day, and then building out the service and the processes behind the service, and then bringing that to a group of people, and then I'm probably on my 37th iteration of the whole thing, and it's a up and down roller coaster. And yeah, I would love to be able to get locked in to where I have a clear picture who my ICP is, exactly what the messaging is, and at least to the point where I can have some sort of repeatability in bringing the service to market.
I was just going to say, I certainly think you're not alone in that dilemma. So I hope that during these times, you're really leaning on a lot of other founders like yourself for support and just general camaraderie and goodwill.
Yeah. There's, and I know that I'm not alone. It's a thing. It's very common. So yeah,
absolutely. And I've seen this a lot more lately. I know, like, as millennials, we have this kind of hustle culture that turns so many side jobs, 2, 3, 4 different side jobs. And really what I've seen even more so lately is with all of the layoffs and with the way that the economy is right now, especially for marketers, a lot of people turning to entrepreneurship in that way. So I think this episode is really going to resonate with people in that lane right now, because it's understanding. And what we'll get into is going from freelance to a full-fledged business and what that actually looks like. So Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start Preframe and what problem you were trying to solve when you decided to go down this route?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I've done freelance work in the video production services for a very long time, maybe even 15, almost 20 years ago. And this was, hey, we have a project that we want to do. We know Joe. Joe, would you like to do it? And that's basically I'm just hired for a project. And that's how I would define freelance, where they're not going to hire me as a full-time or part-time. just going to bring me on for a project. And how I eventually got to where I am right now is I had a big perspective shift one day when I was learning and understanding about having some sort of repeatable process for acquiring new business. This is the understanding of cost per acquisition, lifetime value, conversion rates through different stages. And it kind of hit me where opportunities aren't just where you happen to step into a room or who do you know. You can actually develop a process and refine the process and ultimately get to the point where you can have like a paid acquisition where you have the money in and then you get business out. And I didn't really realize that was even an option. Granted, it's an extremely difficult thing to stand up, but that kind of rocked my world because no longer was opportunity just happenstance. It was something that I could at least have some sort of an influence on.
And so what did that look like right at the beginning? Can you tell us a little bit about like how you got started and what those initial learnings were?
Yeah. So in the very, very beginning, I went through a lot of what I realized in like the first 1 or 2 years is that I had a whole lot of personal things to work out in my mind and just like the way I was relating to people. So in the very beginning, I was in a place where, I've got someone in my circle and it looks like they may be a lead. And now I'm going after them to try to get money from them. This was my approach many years ago. And I think that was from an old mindset that I had from my work or like an employee. So if you're an employee, you want to try to go get a job. And then after I fell on my face a lot from approaching business from that perspective, I was like, why isn't this working? Why can't I just like go chase after people and catch them? I really had to realize that actually that's not the way any of this works. I actually need to find a way to help people first, to be able to provide value for people. And then if I can stay true in that intention and going and trying to help people, then things just kind of follow from that naturally. And it's a much more beautiful process.
I think what you just shared really resonates with me because I have so many neurodivergent people in my life. And this whole notion of how do I find a way to connect, especially when it's just these cold outreaches, and not by any means saying that that's what you are, but I think that or in any way, shape, or form, it's just that it's not this intuitive thing that everybody has. And it's also, how the person responds back to you when you make that effort to put yourself out there. So I feel like the way we go to market is changing, and I think it's positive. But I also think you hit on a lot of other great points too, like all these business acumens that you just used. I mean, I can't even begin to venture like how many people actually know what those business acronyms mean. So it's not like there was this beautiful playbook you could have picked up to just start this all on your own. And there's so much complexity to human beings. But I love that what you discovered was, okay, this is hard. This is something I'm doing really on my own. That can feel really lonely. And what I'm going to decide to do with these feelings is actually lean into try and understand the other person. So it wasn't like, why is Joe the best at what he does?
Yeah.
Instead, it became, how can I elevate Corrina to be the best she can be, as an example?
Yeah.
And that's what I hope is the future, not just in business, but just generally, is being open to new ways of thinking and new ways of going to market.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of like the biggest shift for me, is focusing on where can I be useful, and what are some of the problems or the pain points that people, or the challenges that businesses are going through, and how can I help? And once I started viewing things from that perspective, that really shifted a lot of, I mean, the metrics from the business started to follow that. And so my business up to this point has almost entirely been a lot like freelance work. Even like the actual work that I'm doing is very similar to a lot of the gigs I had of many years ago, which is we got work to get done, and there's Joe. So we like Joe and we like his work. Now we're gonna go give Joe the video work. But which is actually, even though it's not what I call the core service of what Preframe is aiming to do ultimately, it's given us the ability to have some revenue to invest in operations consulting. So like I hired an operations consultant, we designed out systems, and it's kind of been this research and development phase of really crystallizing what are we doing exactly, how do we do it. So even though the work itself has been up to this point freelance, essentially, we've kind of got like a pretty nice productized service to bring to market now.
That's awesome. And I definitely want to come back to that. But one of the things you mentioned earlier, we've heard this theme quite a lot on the podcast, is this give before you get mentality. And I didn't want to jump over that too quickly because it's so important and so powerful. So I'm curious what it was once that mindset shifted. Tactically, what did you do as sort of the give, and what were the results that you started to see, the shift in your business you started to see from that?
Yeah. Tactically, it began with, so like the shift, and really the biggest contrast is before I was focused on how am I going to pitch what I do. And then after, contrast that with me asking questions. And I'm asking, what's going on? Like big open-ended questions of, so tell me about the market that you guys are going after right now. What's the competition? How are you guys differentiating yourselves? So it was a true discovery. And then once I can map out that picture, then I can find like a puzzle piece. Where can I help in here? Then I'll say, oh, I think I know how I can help, versus just going in and saying, here's how I think I can help with zero context.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did mention that operations consultant. So what, for people who are trying to move from this freelance to actually like an agency type of business, what was it like? What inspired you to reach out to this operations consultant, and what value did they bring to you?
Yeah. So the inspiration behind having what they call a productized service is, so there are many things or many reasons why you'd want to go productized for a service. One being specialization. So if you can identify a single problem in a market and get really, really, really good at it, and then have that deep expertise, it compounds over time. So 5, 10, 15 years into it, it's like, hey, we've been in this focused game, laser focused on this single problem. And then we'd be able to bring best practices and be able to solve that unique challenge and be able to actually differentiate. So like in the world of video services, video services are so commoditized. It's like copywriting or design. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, you can write. It's kind of like that. So I really wanted to be able to identify a problem and then design systems around it so that we could execute consistently, and also be able to provide a really really high quality customer experience. So all of this requires systematization and process management. So I hired actually a couple people. I've worked with a number of people, and it's been like research and development. So we'd go months and months operating these, like writing up these SOPs, standard operating procedures, putting them into practice, and then, oh, maybe we don't need this, or maybe we don't need that. Or it's been this continual refinement to where after a year or so, a year and a half or so, I feel like we've got a pretty well-oiled machine in place. And cool thing is that because we're so focused on solving one problem, we can refine the machine only for that one problem.
That's amazing. And just to reiterate, that one problem is?
Yes. So, and actually this is, and it sounds like I'm so confident that I know what it is after all this iteration, but so we're currently in this go-to-market phase where I'm really trying to zero in on who exactly it is that we help, and exactly what it is that we do, as like, how do we present it? The gap or the unmet need that I have discovered that I think I can be helpful in is there's an inflection point where you have a sales team is working with an account, and sometimes this inflection point is they'll send a link, whether that's to a virtual sales room or a deal room. And at the top of that deal room is typically a video. And that video, it's from the sales perspective, they have to deliver this deal page quickly. Time is of the essence, but video production takes time. So you kind of end up in this scenario where it's like, okay, what do we have available that I can just plug in right now? And oftentimes it's a highly polished branding awareness video, and it has nothing to do with the deal. It's a tremendous opportunity, that real estate, because that link is going to be shared with the full buying committee. So it's an opportunity to get all stakeholders aligned on what's the problem they're trying to solve. How is the company uniquely positioned to solve for that? And so it's an opportunity squandered many times because they don't have an asset that's ready when that opportunity comes. So what people essentially do right now is they'll have the account executive will send a loom, and that solves for it being deal relevant. But there's so much potential being left on the table because they're not really fully leveraging like senior leadership, subject matter experts, customer voice, all the things that like these people can lend their credibility to the deal. But now you have an account executive who kind of has to carry all of that. And that's a challenging place for the buyer because they understand that a salesperson wants to get a commission. Mm-hmm. But if you can leverage those other voices, then they can come in a way that's like, oh, they're coming from this place of expertise that's more neutral and not just the commission. So
that's such a cool
that's
space.
The unmet need. Yeah, that's the unmet need that I'm focusing on.
Well, and that's such a cool space that you've found in the market, because you're exactly right to your point. We all know that account-based video is so powerful, and video is such a powerful channel and medium. But what you see, exactly where you highlighted, is either these super polished, like they could be a TV commercial, they don't really speak to any one particular persona or business or account, or the total opposite end of that spectrum, which we know still works, but it's not quite the quality to like you want to send to an enterprise team, which would be those like Zoom based vidyards where you write on the whiteboard and you shake it and you say hi.
Hey.
And you do a quick 60 or 90-second video to speak to really, those are to capture attention more often than not. But exactly to what you're talking about, scaling and turning video around quickly, that is super specific to the problems and opportunities at one account, is just incredible space to be in. So once you've found that kind of niche that you really fit in, what has been some like changes that you've made to how you're going out to market and pitching these, obviously, and or maybe some success that you've had so far?
Yeah. Well, so and again, we're really in that extremely early go to market phase. So the one benefit, like the strongest tool that I have right now in my toolbox, is I do have a license for Zoom Info. So I have the access to the data to identify like who are the VP of sales within certain companies. And I have some level of intent data, even though there's not an explicit intent for this. So it's been a lot of cold outreach with little success, honestly. So, and also all of my budget's gone to Zoom Info. So I don't even have an ad budget. So I'm just trying to figure something out with such limited resources. I know I can provide value, but it's like I just kind of gotta crack the code on how to at least find some early adopters, really.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on that. Like advertising spend is down. I think the last I heard, like at least by 50%. So I don't think that that's the winning formula, right? I think that's part of a multi-orchestration strategy, but you're the brand, right? And I think you could lean in a little bit more to that by even having your own landing page on how they can buy from you.
It's so meta.
It's so meta, yeah. But have you ever considered something like that before? Because obviously, like, I think we've been talking about influencer strategies for like, early adopters, there's so many names for them. That's definitely an avenue. And I feel like that's something you could work into your contract. And, it's not even like you have to sacrifice your revenue for it. I think it's just people expect that, right? So have you ever considered Joe's landing page as an example?
Yeah, I've done some video production. I've done some like me talking kind of pages. I mean, I think it's a tool. It's definitely a tool. One thing I'm exploring. So many sales enablement tools have digital sales rooms as part of the product. So like HighSpot, Seismic, a number of other. I mean, it's almost like table stakes because it is like a WYSIWYG page editor with tracking. I could probably build one.
Yeah.
But something that I've been thinking about is almost doing like a partner channel outreach, maybe throw in some cookies, and
I think me and Taylor would be happy to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're the persona too, right?
Right.
We're the personas that, and to Taylor's earlier point, like, I'm not talking to an account executive. I'm having virtual buying parties without my account executive at said vendor account, whatever. So I think finding people that genuinely, I mean, imagine too, if you found like a raving fan of the customer you're trying to land and had them be on the landing page.
That would be ideal. Yeah. I think if you wanted to rank who sells the best, it's customers sell the best. And if you can get a customer saying something, it's pure gold.
But do you know how few companies do that? I feel like most marketers, out of my like 13 years of experience in being a revenue marketer, they wait till that 3-year mark, right? To jump in and say, hi, I'm Corrina Owens. I'm a marketer here. I would love to get to know you a little bit better and do a case study on you. It's like, hello. Yeah. You should be talking to your customers as much as possible. Your whole organization should be. Yeah. So I think what you would be showing the company that you're trying to acquire, this is how easy it can be. Like, I happen to scan your website. I happen to see, and I just reached out to them and said, hey, just curious, because this is what people do. I get it all the time. Taylor, you get it all the time. Joe, I'm sure you get it all the time. What do you think about XYZ product? And imagine if you got an amazing organic response.
Yeah.
And then you could be genuine and authentic and say, hey, I'm actually trying to earn business with them. I know this would mean the world to them if they could hear this kind of feedback. Would you mind if I shared it with them in some form or fashion? I don't know. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely getting the voice of the customer that's like 100% important for sure.
You could be the one getting that for your prospect.
And then showing them that power of that video format of that voice of customer back in it.
Yeah. Actually, so one of the first big breakthroughs that my business had was for a company called Matterport. They're sort of like our first like post revenue client. That's when we became post revenue. So when we got Matterport, and a lot of the work that we did was customer voice, customer stories. So back to the idea that you have like a sales rep who has an account that they're going after, and they need to be able to they'll be putting that deal page together, and oh, there's a video. Do we have something for this? And I've been on the teams, like the marketing teams, who get those requests, and usually it only comes down the pike if it's a very important account and it's a tier one. And essentially what that means is drop everything that you're doing and all hands on deck, we're going to go get this account. So, and that's kind of like how you respond. And I think there's almost no way of getting out of that. If there's an incredible opportunity, okay, yes, shift the resources, let's make it happen. But what kind of gave me my aha moment was like, we're leveraging all these wonderful voices within the company to make the best impression for this account. But surely we can pre-record some of this stuff. This is like a sales readiness issue. Like, we don't have to be so reactive. We can templatize it. We can pre-record it, segment it into clips, and then assemble as needed. And that modular production is what allows, that's the vision for being able to be able to respond in a timely manner while still leveraging the broader team. Because you can't always say, hey, VP of customer success, drop what you're doing, come over and do this. And you can't do that at scale. So you're totally limited to those tier one accounts, but there's no volume to it.
That I think goes back to social selling, right? Like where we really need to start empowering our employees to be able to talk about our service and offerings, our products. You mentioned partners. I think there's still to date in enterprise companies some of the most underutilized channels. I've worked at private equity companies. I've worked at software companies. I've worked at a variety of different industries. Taylor has as well. And they don't know half the time, like the partners to the client that we're working for, they don't even know half the time what they do. So there's almost like this element too of like, how can we enable and scale your team, Joe, right? Because maybe you can't have the headcount that you want right now, but you could have partners and you could be in these communities. And you touched on it a little bit earlier. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how somebody at a company your size or any entrepreneurs really, like how can they be thinking about leveraging social selling, partnerships, what have you, to make your product known? Because I really do think that we are entering a new age of people can sniff out a cold email from a mile away,
Totally.
a paid ad from a mile away.
Of course.
We have Chat GPT that we get, every question answered for. So I know we could go there too.
Oh, it's getting so crazy.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts? Because I think you've already shown that you're an innovator. So I think I'm hearing you talk too much about the old playbook. And I don't really think Joe subscribes to the old playbook. Am I wrong or am I right?
I don't think I do subscribe to the old playbook. And this is, so one of the things I ran into when I signed a contract with ZoomInfo is like, all right, let's get set up. Let's do it. And then they're like, okay, now that we've got all this stuff set up, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go over to this window and you're going to spam your list. And I'm like, time out. Like, what are we doing? And I was like, oh shit, I think I shouldn't have signed this contract. What am I doing? So yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Go
that's
ahead,
where
Taylor.
a lot of these smaller businesses, founders who are trying to go from freelance to scale and really build a business that's a long-term and scalable operation. That I think everything that you've said so far is where so many of these people find themselves. So as opposed to buying a list and really just spamming that list with email propaganda, we'll say, for lack of a better term.
Those are
Where
called
do you-
newsletters. Newsletter.
company propaganda.
Stay in the know.
But I
Take
think
my
when-
LinkedIn post and just go look at it in your email inbox.
There you go.
But really, where I'm trying to get with this is like you've clearly gotten into Matterport, you've gotten post revenue, like you've said, you've changed the way that you're going after people with creating kind of a brand online and being a lot more intentional about who you're going after and surrounding them with things that can actually help. Am I hearing that right? In your post original freelancer motion.
Yeah. I'd say that's a pretty good summation. Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and they're in that kind of freelance lane, do you think that there's a way that you could have, or a lesson that you learned that you could have maybe moved into the phase that you're in now a little bit earlier, besides like, don't just buy lists and spam people?
Give us your like 2 or 3 hot takes.
Yeah. So like from freelancer to business owner.
Mhm.
Okay. So I think one of the biggest shifts from freelancer to business owner would be designing a company, designing a service or product where you're removing yourself from the fulfillment of the product or service. If it's Joe's video production services, then once Joe is off the billboard, there's no value, there's no equity built in the business. And this is part of the emphasis on the SOPs is I want to be able to remove myself from the day-to-day so that I can focus on my unique ability, the things that I know that I can do the best, and then actually start building a team around the fulfillment and scaling, etc. But so even though I think there's value in the founder, if I have insight or thoughts and stuff, there's value in that. But I definitely want to make sure that the service itself doesn't solely depend on me, though I'm designing myself into key inflection points to ensure quality and making sure that we're doing things in the right way. So not completely disconnected, but at least I can step away. I think that's probably the biggest shift is just designing it so that it doesn't completely rely on me. And then that leads towards like the potential for selling or just having it being managed or administrated without me hovering over it like every 3 seconds.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I feel like every founder is going to laugh out loud as well when they hear that.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thank you for being so vulnerable with us and sharing with us your story. It's super timely. I want to bring us back to our original question that Taylor kicked off at this top. There's several things you've said that I think you may not realize you already have, like the wherewithal to go about to this, but I'm going to pass it to you first. So we asked you if you had a magic wand, if there's one thing you could change about your business today, what would it be? And you said knowing the right way to go to market. After talking with Taylor and I, do you think that you've already walked away with some takes on how maybe you already are doing that and it may just take a little bit longer, or new takes that you hadn't considered before?
Yeah, I do need to lean into the idea of drinking my own Kool-Aid or champagne or dog food or something.
Kombucha.
Yeah, kombucha. Yes. Yeah, I think that's always a really good idea. I also I also think too, like, I get in my head a lot about, I mean, I guess that's part of the defining features of being a solo founder. Bootstrap is you just get in your head and you just kind of get looped in there forever. But I I can take even more action on like being outspoken about the things that I believe in or the things that I see.
Absolutely. I just want to say that I think Taylor and I are huge advocates of you and would love to be more advocates of you. And I totally understand how intimidating and scary it is. And I'm in my head probably like 24/7 and I'm trying to
Yeah.
get out of it. You know, it doesn't really do us any good.
Yeah,
I,
that's true.
s- I saw this old man on TikTok, long gray beard the other day. And all he said was, you know, that voice inside your head that says you're stupid and you're an idiot and you can't do it. It's an idiot.
Oh,
Have a good
that's the
day.
idiot. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
idiot.
the idiot.
Right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. When you were speaking, it's just like, I'm like, "No, Joe knows how to go to market. It's
Oh
Yeah.
just
man.
different. It's just
Yeah.
different. And it's not what anytime, look, change is inevitable. And anytime that somebody pushes a different narrative or a different way of doing things, it's going to come with challenges. But Joe, you are an incredible human being
Oh, thanks.
and you really care about what you put out.
Yeah.
And that shows and that's unique. So I think that magic wand is already there. And I think that you just need to start
Oh, yeah.
whapping it.
Oh, but
Yeah, or that was probably
for it.
no.
sparkles.
Sparkles.
I
Yeah.
need to start sparkling it.
Sparkle yourself.
That's
You
more
deserve it.
sparkles.
You deserve it. And you made excellent points that are going to resonate with like audience of all generations. Like you really did. So you know what you're doing. You're super intentional and you're super thoughtful. And to me, that's kind of like all I would ever want to see in a founder. Taylor, what do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. That give before you get kind of mentality, everything that you spoke to. We spent a lot of time, I think, on the learnings and education, but you have this really clear structure and plan of where to go from here. And I think that's where just the push of like, yeah, you know it. You've got get the confidence because you do know it and you've done the work and you've seen success with a really large brand in Matterport. And it's just about, believing that. And even myself with this podcast and even lately being online and kind of talking about yourself is the weirdest thing on the planet. And it
Yeah.
feels
It's super
really
weird.
strange. But I
Yeah.
like a lot, and I know you personally, and a lot of what you talked about today, I had no idea about. So I push you, I urge you to get online and start telling this story even more, shout it out, because that middle ground where you find that niche of the videos that you're talking about, it's such a really fantastic approach. And I'm not hearing people talk about it. And I can't wait to hear you talk about it more.
LinkedIn is an echo chamber right now, guys. People are saying a lot of the same things, and there's just a lot of agreement. And I'm cool with agreement, but I love conversation. And I think that
Yeah.
that's what the three of us had today, right?
Yeah.
Is that we had conversation. And so I think that you'll find when you do share your story, whether that's in a text message, a private community, or on LinkedIn or other social platforms, I think you'll find like, oh, this isn't a Joe thing. This is just a thing.
Yeah.
And then you're not only helping yourself, you're helping somebody else too. And that has ripple effects. And that's the goal of our podcast, is to remind these incredible go-to-market professionals of how powerful they are and how much they have yet to give. And that is the entire purpose, is to shine a light on you. So I hope that you walk away from this recording feeling inspired, powerful, and more aware of your worth.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining the show. And
of course. Thank you for
you are
having
welcome
me.
back anytime. And I think Taylor and I are both looking forward to seeing what is to come now that you have some new thoughts and strategies and ideas. And we are your cheerleaders. We'll be here to support you.
Always.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Direct with Corrina and Taylor.
If you enjoyed what you heard in today's episode, please give us a follow, maybe even a 5-star review, wherever you listen to your podcast.
And if you know someone that you'd like to spotlight, if you want to share your own story, visit us at motionagency.io/direct. We'd love to hear from you.